I've been in the tourism industry for years, but I've been lying to my clients. And, somehow, it got me promoted. Let me tell you how. It all started with a simple job offer. I had always dreamed of working in a beautiful place, a luxury resort by the beach. I wanted a fresh start, a change in my career. But there was a problem. I didn't have the knowledge or experience required for the position. In fact, I had a degree in something entirely unrelated to tourism. But, life had a funny way of throwing opportunities at me, and when the job came, I couldn't resist. It was a prestigious resort, a paradise for tourists. The kind of place where people came to unwind, to forget about their daily stresses, and immerse themselves in paradise. It felt like a dream come true, a way out of the mundane. There was just one issue. I wasn't prepared for this at all. I'd never worked as a tour guide before. I didn't know the first thing about the local history, the landmarks, or the cultural significance of the area. But I wasn't about to let that stop me. I threw myself into research, studying online reviews, watching documentaries, reading every brochure about the place. I soaked up as much as I could. But still, I was a far cry from being an expert. On my first day, I stood before a group of tourists, armed with nothing but my notebook and a clipboard. They were eager to know everything: history, facts, stories about the landmarks. I smiled and nodded, but deep down, I was terrified. The pressure was suffocating. I felt my palms sweating, my heart racing. What if they asked me something I didn't know? Then, it happened. A tourist asked me about the history of a particular landmark. My mind went blank. I had no idea. The words stumbled out of my mouth as I tried to fake my way through it. I told them the landmark was over 200 years old and spun a tale I had read in a local folklore book. I had no idea if it was true or not, but the tourists seemed to love it. They were captivated by my story, hanging on every word, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. At that moment, I realized something: this could work. I could fake my way through this. And, as the days passed, I did. Each tour was an opportunity to embellish a little more, to weave a little more fiction into the truth. The tourists adored me. They would rave about how engaging I was, how knowledgeable, how entertaining. Soon, people started requesting private tours with me specifically. They believed every word I said, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. I was the star of the show. But as much as I was basking in the attention, I knew deep down that the lie was growing. Every time I spoke, I added another layer to the story. Each day, I was further from the truth, and yet, it became easier to keep up the facade. One day, I was summoned to the manager's office. My heart skipped a beat. Was I in trouble? Had someone found out? When I walked in, I was surprised to see a smile on the manager's face. He told me that the company was impressed with how much business I was bringing in. The guests were coming back, they were recommending me to others, and I was quickly becoming the face of the resort. The other guides weren't as enthusiastic, and while they knew the facts, they didn't have the same charm or storytelling flair that I did. I had a way of captivating my audience, of turning a simple walk into an unforgettable experience. And for that, they offered me a promotion. I was made the lead guide. My heart raced. I had done it. I had faked my way to the top. But as the days went on, the weight of the lie grew heavier. The deeper I got into my role, the more pressure there was to maintain the story. I started to question myself: was I truly deserving of this promotion? Could I continue to deceive people like this? I had become the face of something I wasn't, and the guilt gnawed at me every time I stood before a group of tourists. It didn't take long before cracks started to appear. A new guide was hired, someone more experienced, with actual knowledge about the area. He started asking questions, digging deeper into the history of the landmarks. I felt a chill run down my spine. What if he figured me out? What if the tourists started asking him questions? Then, the worst possible thing happened. A guest overheard a conversation between me and the new guide. He asked me about the history of one of the landmarks, and suddenly, I was trapped. My heart pounded in my chest. I froze, desperately trying to come up with a story that would keep him satisfied. But the guest wasn't buying it anymore. The lie was unraveling. That was the moment I had to make a decision. I could either keep lying, risking everything, or I could come clean. I knew deep down that it was time to face the truth. I had to confess. I went into the manager's office, feeling like I was walking to my doom. My palms were sweating, my knees weak. I sat down across from him, and I told him everything. I explained how I had faked my way through the job, how I had lied to the guests, and how I was terrified of being found out. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done. To my surprise, the manager didn't fire me. Instead, he looked at me with understanding in his eyes. He appreciated my honesty. He didn't want to lose me as a guide, but he also wanted me to be the real expert I had always wanted to be. He offered me a role in a training program, one that would give me the knowledge I had been pretending to have all along. It was a turning point in my life. I realized that the truth was far more powerful than any story I could tell. Owning up to my mistakes not only saved my career but also gave me the chance to truly grow. I wasn't pretending anymore. I was learning, and I was becoming the expert I had always hoped to be. So, what about you? Have you ever told a white lie to get ahead? How far did it take you? What did you learn from it? Let's talk about it. In the end, I realized that lies can only take you so far. The real power comes from owning your truth, no matter how uncomfortable it may be.